Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here. Taping this early Sunday morning. Wow, what a day we had yesterday. And you all, I'm seeing estimates of around 4 million people who turned out for the No King's Day protests across the nation. For the most part, it was absolutely peaceful and incredible and whew, Spirit had our backs on that because there were, we heard about San Francisco and Virginia, I think, where we had cars trying to, plow through crowds. I think in Utah, someone was actually killed. And of course, we all know what happened in Minnesota with those that state senator and state representative. Man, they better. Tim Walz was already, warming up and is absolutely unafraid to take it to this administration. That's getting ready to come double, triple time along. I'm getting with some other Democratic governors like Pritzker, like Shapiro, certainly like Gavin Newsom, who doesn't look like that's going to settle down anytime soon. We're seeing that of all the places that there was some scuffling around, that with tear gas, etc., that is what happened in LA, in large part because of this use of the National Guard and the Marines. Gonna take a look at that as well. But first thing I want to look at, you all, is how's FDT doing today? Because those bleachers were empty in DC, practically empty, put it that way. Don't want to over exaggerate, but all of the, how he is about his crowds and all of the estimates just did not happen. And by the way, let me back up. I'm just jumping right in. For those of you who may be just landing on the channel, I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I am a tarot reader, been doing it for decades, and I'm also a former newspaper journalist. So I try to, stay really grounded in my readings, but also go to spirit to see what the heck is going on, get some more information and context for what's happening. And I am an initiated priestess in both Wiccan and African tradition. So that's just in case you're not familiar with me. Really glad you're here. Subscribers, new subscribers, members, I thank you so very much. I appreciate your time, your attention, and I do treat this as a community, as a platform where it's just not me getting on here, doing readings for you all, but for you to have a space to, exchange with one another respectfully, and you do that, and I really honor that, and I appreciate you for it. All right. So he was sitting up there yesterday. Midas Touch Network had an interesting video, a pretty lengthy clip of him sitting there just scowling and, halfway looking like he just wanted to fall out. Melania was apparently falling asleep through part of it. Marco Rubio was sitting there yawning, didn't even bother to cover it. He was yawning. It was quite an interesting thing. There were people who showed up clearly to support the military, but the idea that, we all know much of this, and we're hearing new estimates. This $45 million price tag we're hearing now is closer to $200 million. Okay, for troops to be housed in vacant apartment buildings with no cots, we're being told, sleeping on floors and eating rations. Like they didn't even have, accommodations for them to feed and to really take care of them while they were there. So that's some interesting energy. We've been seeing, Spirit's been saying the military, many members of the military are extremely conflicted about this, resentful, deeply resentful. And all of that, I think, is going to blow back. What I'm getting from Spirit, Hegseth, you all, is going to crack. He is literally tick tock. He's going to crack because between what we see happening domestically, with the push to continue to get military intervention in sanctuary cities, and what we see, heightening on the global scale with Iran, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, etc. He's being pulled in so many different directions, Hegseth as well as FDT, pulled in so many different directions, does not have senior advisors on his staff. Nobody wants to work for him. I understand that JD Vance and Susie Wiles are in the background making calls, trying to, get some support for him and get those positions filled. Hegseth is in big, big, big trouble, you all. That's what I'm getting from Spirit. I want to take a look at him. All right, first, FDT. What is his mindset? What is his energy? What's happening with him in the wake of yesterday's parade? His 79th birthday clearly did not go as he hoped, as he planned. All of the adoring crowds just simply did not show up. And in contrast to that, as we said, 4 million people we're hearing across the nation showing up. We have a 10 of Cups, and at the bottom of the deck, the 10 of Cups. So this was what he thought was going to happen. This was what he truly, in his mind, thought, this is going to be fantastic. There are going to be throngs of people, standing room only kind of thing. Yeah, that did not happen. With the Sun, you know what's interesting between these two cards? I don't think he's seeing the reality of it. Wow. And we're hearing more and more, dementia, mental decline, cognitive decline, etc. I don't know that he's seeing the reality of it. I think he's painting, or people around him for sure, are painting a very different picture. Page of Cups comes reversed. Okay, you know what? I get it. And I did read something to this effect in a couple of news stories this morning, you all. One of the things that they're spinning about the parade yesterday, the military parade, is the idea that it was a solid recruiting tool, that it did make the military, brought attention to the success of the military, the power and might of the military. So that, I think they're selling FDT the idea of how successful this was as a tool with all of these global events happening, that the military is going to be stronger, that you're going to have young people really eager and wanting to move to enlist. King of Swords, he's coming up. That's him as a Gemini. What about him, Spirit? By the way, somebody's going to probably ask me, because you saw that's Marvin Gaye in that King of Swords depiction. I'm using upside down, the music tarot. All right, so take a look at him. King of Swords. What was happening with him, or what is he feeling today, specifically in the wake of that? The Devil. Here comes the Devil. Oh, he's resentful. He's very, very resentful. And the Four of Wands. Why didn't my people commit to me? Why didn't they show up in their commitment for me? Because the Four of Wands is usually, it's a celebratory card. Very often can come up around marriages and causes of celebration where people come together and commit to something. Very often a marriage card as well. FDT, Seven of Cups. Where does he go from here? Really mixed emotions. He doesn't know quite what to think. He knows he was insulted, or there's a part of him that feels resentful and insulted because he wanted more. He expected more. But also, that Seven of Cups and Seven of Pentacles, there's denial there. And that denial isn't just within him, you all. It's the people around him saying, well, we know it didn't quite, the optics weren't quite there, but listen, when we tell you this was a raging success, like that sort of thing. Just lies, absolutely lying to him. And the Ten of Wands comes to confirm that. There's a crushing, deep inside him, there's a sense of a crushing defeat that this absolutely did not, especially in contrast to the No King's Day protests that were incredible around the nation. Three of Cups, his birthday, that was he really did consider that, and we knew that it was never about the military. It was largely, it was mostly about celebrating him. And the Magician. this is such a smoke show. Like, he really, in his mind, he feels like I pulled it off, period. I pulled it off. I wanted it. I wanted it when I was in office before and they wouldn't let me have it. And now I had it. Now I did it. I pulled it off. But there's also, I'm mindful of that devil, you all. He's falling into his own trap of, they just said hallucinating. What? I just heard the word hallucinating, like falling into his own trap of believing his own crap, like believing Knight of Swords. There's so many pats on the back, and oh, you did it. Nobody wanted you to have this, and you actually were able to have it. Like, really, talking about alternate facts or an alternate reality. Yeah. So, and the King of Cups comparing himself still to Biden. He's so fixated, Biden as a Scorpio, and I very often would pull him as the King of Cups. He's so fixated on that because that's his, you know how he gets on something, FDT, and he just, it's weird, he just won't let it go. He sees it as a victory of sorts over Biden still. Like, look what I was able to pull off in DC that you never could have. Nine of Wands, pushing on, what else can I get from it? Yeah, I'm surprised at this reading, you all, because again, I watched that Midas Touch story and video, and he's almost looking like he wants to cry, like, because the bleachers were empty, the monument, that the greater spaces were empty. They said that there weren't enough loudspeakers, like the people who were there couldn't even hear half of what was going on. It was just a disaster. And there's the moon, but that again, illusion. Yeah, total denial, total delusion. But he's also being fed that from the sycophants all around him, telling him how wonderful it was, how great it was. Page of Swords. We have all King of Swords, Knight of Swords, and the Page of Swords have come up. So this is spinning to him, hey, everything was good. Don't worry about a thing. You did it. You pulled it off. And the Five of Swords. That's all that, again, Spirit confirming. Thank you, Spirit. All of these different voices in his ear telling him how grand and beautiful and wonderful and successful it was, when in fact, it was anything but that. All right. Speaking of him, still, he is on his way today to the G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, right? Of all places, Canada. So we're hearing that, of course, a major objective of the summit is for all of these international leaders to come together, especially in the face of these mounting and escalating global conflicts right now, right? We've got, everything, of course, continued in Russia-Ukraine war, and now we've got Israel and Iran. And so he's going there on his tariffs deals, thinking he's going to have all these one-on-ones. Zelensky is going to be there. Very interesting. I want to take a look at that real quick. I'm being pulled. Spirit, what will happen between, they're telling me to go to this predictions deck. What will happen between FDT and Zelensky? FDT and Zelensky at the G7 summit. FDT and Zelensky at the G7 summit in particular. Submarine underwater, nothing. He's not even going to want to, because he recognizes that he can't deliver on promises. He has no sway over Putin. And negotiations, evidence of a scandal comes up. There may be something that comes out of that we hear in the media. In regards to a meeting between them, and so many people I think FDT is gonna get pulled. His objective, he's not going to want to really engage with Zelensky because he has no real negotiating power there. Zelensky has seen through him the use of force that Ukraine recently, last couple of weeks, all those missiles and against Russia, and the U.S. apparently was really not in on it. So FDT's got all that in the back of his head. There's no juice for him. Everything he does is transactional. So there's no real juice for him in honing in on Zelensky. And he looks like an evidence of a scandal. He's he's very well aware and still salty over the fact that Ukraine pulled out a big one and without his help and assistance. So in general, the royal family, he's there to be the big dog, appear to be the big dog. His focus, you all, is going to be on tariffs. That's his negotiating power. That's where he feels like he can get these world leaders to continue to, not bow down to him, but a planned outcome. Exactly. This for him is a business meeting. It's a one big conference for his tariffs, and he has no real policy, no real pull. He has lost a lot of influence with the global community around how to address what's happening with the wars. He has no influence over Putin. Zelensky, he's lost, there's all credibility with Zelensky has been lost. He would, they're going to give him the respect of giving him some time and wanting to speak with him. Floods and heavy rain is forecast, meaning symbolically the cost among these nations that FDT is employing through the tariffs. So yes, they'll have meetings with him. They're going to want to do what they can do and have meetings with him. But this innocent and truthful comes up, meaning they recognize that they would like it to be that way. They would like to be able to actually engage with him and have something substantive and say, okay, how can we work this out? But nobody's believing him. It's really him showing up as this, playing this game. I'm here. Who's ready to do business with me? Who's ready to do, who's ready to cut the deal? And I don't think that's going to happen. Spirit, the other leaders, Mark Carney, Keir Starmer, so many other leaders that are coming from around the globe, how are they going to respond to FDT? How are they going to interact with him? And will there be tariff deals that come out of this? I got planned outcome came back again. They do want to utilize this time with him to try and strike deals. Many of the countries do. They are. So there is going to be sort of a line. I'm seeing a line of people wanting to have, one-on-ones with him to try and cut deals for their respective nations. Will there be deals that come out of holding power? And I pulled this again, if you heard me pull a second card, that this is interesting, a repeat that came, that submarine underwater. Too much. He's not trusted. And even if he gives, because he's gone so, all this back and forth, it's on, it's off, it's 50%, well, okay, it's 30%, or it's 100% tariff, or no, well, okay, we'll bring it back down to 30. Like, it's too much. It's underwater. But this holding power as well, he's not even going to want to really cut deals and make these tariff deals, because he wants to prove that he can hurt them, that he can cost them. And the fact that it will cost here in the United States as well, we already have seen the reaction to that. Yikes. Okay. Hegseth. Saw a piece, I don't know if it was ProPublica, but I saw a piece that said there are those within the Pentagon, of course, they have to speak anonymously, who are saying this man is a wreck, that he is showing up unshaven, angry, like, talk about low morale, right? So, Spirit, the future of Pete Hegseth, is he on his way out? Pete Hegseth, is he on his way out? Well, the fool, right out the deck. Where I almost feel like they're going to play this risky game with him a little bit longer and keeping him in there because he is very useful. We saw him testifying in front of Congress and just, well, the president, well, but this administration, well, but like, no. And they were getting mad. There were folks in there like, what are you even doing here? Page of Swords, trying, they're trying to find him adequate help. Like, they are literally scrambling and trying to find him adequate help to help himself and to help him hold on to his position. 7 of Pentacles, 7 of Coins. Exactly. That is a card of assessment. Like so they're not looking to, he's still on FDT's good side for the time being. There's no immediate plan, but there's a 5 of Pentacles. He's not going to be able to do this job. He doesn't have the people around him. He has fired, as many of you know. He's released the senior advisors, those who had the experience and the wherewithal to be able to help him help himself, and they're no longer there. And they can't attract the talent. They've been trying, as I said earlier. J.D. Vance and Susie Wiles have been on, burning up the phones and putting out the feelers and trying to get people in, and nobody wants to come work for him. With the 2 of Swords, there's the conflict. There's a lot of indecision around what do we do with this guy. Knight of Coins, a slow progression, and the Empress. I feel like that's Susie in the background. So what is she feeling? What is her slow progression, Spirit? Is it where she starts to get fed up with the situation and maybe goes to Trump and says this is not going to work with him? There's strength that shows up. And I also feel like this is a timing element. Strength represents Leo, and this is taking us July into August. And the Ace of Swords. Lots of swords come around him. There will be a decision made regarding him around July, August, around whether or not he can make it or if he needs to get replaced. Am I right about that, Spirit? Is a decision around Hegseth going to be made around by the end of summer or by late summer? 3 of Cups, June, July, August. Is that a timing element? Will he be out within the next several months? Timing element got it backed up with the 3 of Pentacles as well. So you all, I'm seeing in around 3 months, Hegseth is going to hit a wall. 4 of Wands, bringing in someone else, and a decision to have to bring in someone else who can really do the job and hold the Pentagon together. Because we see the escalation, we see what's happening, and he can't do it. Everybody knew in the 9 of Swords. Yeah, he's cracking, and he will crack. And the confidence that they have in him, because the idea, they knew, come on, Fox News host to, his military experience aside, the inadequacy and the incompetency was always known, but they also thought that they could get people around him to help him be able to do the job, and that's not happening. Nobody wants to come and help him. So 3 months, you all, around 3 months, something. I didn't see like if I wish I'd seen the tower or death or something that would have said boom, over with. I didn't see that, but it looks like by that time they're running out of excuses to try and continue to say he can still do it. All right. Final thing I want to look at is Tim Walz and these other Democratic governors in the wake of this violence that's spreading and them being targeted. We've already heard a couple of people in, I believe in Minnesota's state legislature who have said they don't know even if they're going to consider running again. Like maybe it's just too much. I'm out. But that is not at all where Tim Walz is coming from. I'm being led back to the predictions deck. Spirit, Tim Walz and other Democratic governors, are they going to work extra hard to solidify the political base so that people will run and continue to be operative? What's he going to do? In particular, Tim Walz, because the hype, all eyes are on Minnesota right now. In particular, we have darkness outage. That's the messaging. Just, how we've gotten to this point. And that this is being done to silence political leaders or would-be political leaders. There's a citing and a disclosure that comes up. That's this guy. That's them going after the I forget his name, but the guy who killed and shot at both homes, the state senator and the state representative, and killed her. Worldwide Earth and celebrate success. There's going to be, Walz is going to be a leading figure among the Democratic governors who have already begun to collaborate and support one another, including, of course, Gavin Newsom, and as we said before, Pritzker, and I feel like there are others who are coming. Spirit, will this have a detrimental impact on Democratic candidates? We have the Wheel of Fortune. I love that card with David Bowie on it. Somewhat, you all. Or at least the consideration, like the stakes have gotten so much higher. This isn't just a matter of ideals. The King of Pentacles, that's Tim. So I get it. Part of the messaging that we're going to see coming from him and from other strong Democratic governors is going to be, they're going to address that. Don't let this stop you from being a public servant, right? Don't let this, make you double back. That's going to be part of the messaging. And here's the Fool. Come join us. And I also am getting, Spirit is the Fool here because it will attract a different sort of talent. We know we've been hearing for months now that part of the Democratic comeback is going to be reliant on different types of candidates, right? Younger, more ready to deal with this. Two of Cups. Yes, the choices that are, so the choices are going to widen and broaden. Many of the typical political figures, those who would typically enter into politics, we're going to see a different, a broader and larger scope of candidates that are willing to step forth, who understand the stakes, who are ready and prepared for that, who won't back down. And there's the Queen of Pentacles that comes as Missy Elliott. Not sure. And the High Priestess. So this is feminine for sure. It's somebody we haven't seen yet, you all. It's somebody who's going to emerge. And I don't know if that's Whitmer. I would be shocked if it were, but maybe. But there is a woman or women who are going to come forth and be a leading, because we saw also in many of the stories around the 4 million who showed up for the No King's Day protest, that they said, there were many men of those who did decide to show up in DC. They were mostly male, and of those 4 million who were spread out across the nation, they were overwhelmingly female. Right, not taking anything away from the male element, or non-binary, however you identify, but women were out in force, and there's the moon, that feminine quality again. So we are going to hear the messaging for sure, not only dealing with this administration and what's being done to federal workers, et cetera, et cetera. The deportation issue, the immigration issues, etc. That's going to continue, but also part of that messaging now is going to be around direct appeals to continue to stay involved, to run for office, the support that will come for those who decide to run for office, knowing that the risks are even greater right now. All right. And the final thing, when I said ice, Spirit was like, don't you close out without looking at this. So now FDT has said, well, you know what, we're going to have to back off at the farms and the hotels. That's, and Stephen Miller is just like foaming at the mouth around that. But I got, when I heard that, I heard, the ice, so ice melts, right? I'm wondering, and I'm going to Spirit, they won't stop this. They can't, because that's one of the stronger tariffs and deportations or immigration issues. Those were his only two calling cards, FDT. That's what his base really wants. That's what they continue to stand by him for. So, not going to stop it. But the goals, like Stephen Miller hollering about, we got to have 3,000 minimum a day, those kinds of things, not having detention facilities prepared or equipped, lack of water, lack of food, all of those things, human rights issues. Spirit, is this going to collapse or certainly slow down over time? Page of Swords. Amy Winehouse, by the way. I love this music deck. Page of Swords. Six of Swords. How in the heck do we continue to move forward? Six of Swords is still planning to move forward, because again, that's all he's got. But how to do it? And do we have to do it in a new way? Because pages are often can reflect a different, a new growing potential to do something a different way. Knight of Cups, Ten of Wands, overwhelmed. ICE agents just completely overwhelmed, even if they deputize and bring in whomever to try and execute this. And the Two of Coins, the sort of trying to strike a balance. So these unrealistic, edicts that have been coming from Stephen Miller around that 3,000 a day or however many a day, that's not realistic. And that is why that's why I heard ice melting. It's just not realistic. It's not real. And there's the Seven of Swords. So they've got a deceit, sometimes outright betrayal. They're going to try and figure out a way to still show the optics will be that, they're still out there, they're still doing their job. They're going to try and milk LA for all it's worth, is what I just heard. Like that is their ground zero for being able to put the optics on. This is working and we're doing what we told you we would do. But there's the Seven of Coins or Seven of Pentacles, having to double back and realize this is how much we've done. And so the deception is going to be, we will hear numbers perhaps that are just not real. We will hear numbers that are not real. Or perhaps the reporting back to Stephen Miller to try and make it seem like, what he's said is being followed. And the Nine of Cups. So your wishes are being followed. But when in fact they are not. Christy Nome. Is there some tension between she and Stephen Miller? That's also another thing that I've got coming up, or a feeling from Spirit. Ace of Cups. There we go. there's going to be some problems, if not already, between Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller, because he's the one in the background barking out all the orders, and she's the one who increasingly is out in front of the crowds, in front of the people, more, with a more hands-on, trying to effectuate it. Not happening. But that's all part of the deception. Trying to make us believe, trying to make their base believe that they're still handling business, but in fact, when it comes to the farms, the hotels, the restaurants, the people who are working to provide services to us and paying taxes to do it, yeah. And so that's all spirit. That all doubles back on Stephen Miller, correct? Like he becomes a problem for FDT. Ace of Swords. All right, that's what we get. And by the way, if you haven't read with me before, my aces are yes from Spirit. That's how I. So yeah, the Stephen Miller FDT bromance love affair is the rope is fraying. All right. All right, you all. I hope that was helpful. I really appreciate you. Stay safe out there. The stakes are so high. Oh, I know some of you are going to ask me about. Let me do it real quick. Cleanse the deck, clear it. U.S. troops in because of what's happening between Israel and Iran. Will U.S. troops have to get involved? I think I already saw something about other troops from the UK perhaps being sent in. Correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I saw something about troops offering support to not just weapons but troops to Israel. Spirit will United States troops, United States military have to get involved in this conflict, in this Middle East conflict between Israel and Iran? Is it going to result in that? 8 of Cups. Ooh, I wasn't expecting that. FDT is going to try and avoid it if at all possible. He does not want, because he knows, and the 10 of Cups, because he thinks that talk, as unpopular as he is right now, and as many of his own base are like, we don't know about this, we're not pleased with what you're doing, that will make it explode even more, to actually have us have U.S. forces involved in that. Page of Wands. Ten of Swords. Gonna try and avoid it at all costs, and this goes back to the military itself. They don't want it. They do not. They're trained and they will do what they have to do to protect the interests of the United States. We heard so many people being interviewed, especially former military personnel who are being interviewed, said we protect the Constitution and we protect the United States, the people of the United States. To throw them in the mix of something like that, then that is 10 of Swords energy all day long. And here comes the Tower. He's going to try and avoid that for all he's worth, because talk about curtains for him. Talk about people really saying, okay, that's it with you. We've had enough. You got to go. Talk about Congress finally waking up out of their coma and doing something to stop this or stop him. Yeah, that's when all of that would happen. And he knows it. That writing is on the wall. So for right now, the idea of putting troops on the ground there or really, putting personnel in the middle of this conflict is 8 of Cups energy. Does not want to. They're going to do everything they can to prevent that. All right. Woo. All right, you all. Mwah. Have a good one. Take really good care of yourselves. Have a good week. I'll check in with you in a couple of days. Chin up. Keep thinking about and looking at the visuals and the videos and the posts of that No King's Day protest. Wow, wow, wow. Props to all of those who participated. Shoulders back, and remember to breathe. All right, I'll talk to you real soon. Bye.